Thank you to Babbel for sponsoring this video. On my channel, I like to cover cases from a variety of countries as much as I can, which means I often have to say personal and place names from different languages. I do my best to pronounce things correctly, but it is not one of my stronger skills. This makes me appreciate the approach Babbel takes in teaching languages. Instead of just teaching vocabulary words, Babbel teaches foundational skills like how individual letters are pronounced and how to properly use new words you learn in sentences. Each of Babbel's highly interactive lessons can be completed in about 10 minutes. In addition to teaching you a new language, Babbel also teaches you about the language's culture, people, history, and more as you go, so that you are more thoroughly prepared to use your new language skills for travel. Babbel offers 2 different Spanish courses, one designed for Latin America and one for Spain. I have been going through the Latin American version. I appreciated learning phrases like no entiendo and aprendo español early on, in case I try to use my new Spanish skills in real life before I have gone through all of my lessons. No matter what your learning style, Babbel offers a format for you. The app features lessons, podcasts, videos, live classes with top teachers, and even games to help you learn. If you would like to start learning a new language, click the link in the description to get 65% off your subscription to Babbel. On January 15th, 2018, a British Airways flight arrived at London's Heathrow Airport from Chicago's O'Hare International Airport. However, as the passengers left the plane, airport officials quickly realized that there was a problem with one of them. This passenger had arrived in London with no documentation, no boarding pass from her flight, and no passport. The passenger was 66-year-old Marilyn Hartman, and she did not have a boarding pass because she had never purchased a ticket for the flight. She had instead somehow managed to get past both British Airways ticket agents and the security checkpoints in Chicago to board the plane without a boarding pass. She simply walked on board and sat in an empty seat, not raising any concerns with the flight crew. Hartman was sent back to Chicago, where she was taken into custody and charged with felony theft in connection to taking the flight without purchasing a ticket, reported to cost between $2,400 and $3,400, as well as with a misdemeanor trespassing charge for entering the airport illegally. This was far from the first time Hartman had entered a secure area of an airport or boarded an actual flight without a valid ticket. Authorities would later compile a list of dozens of incidents involving Hartman at various airports across the United States. Hartman would later claim the total number was much higher, reporting incidents that occurred and flights she took without attracting any attention from authorities. According to Hartman, she first successfully snuck onto a flight without a ticket in 2002, when she took a flight from Chicago to Copenhagen. She claims to have snuck onto another flight, this time to Paris, later that same year. Given her later troubles in London, trying to get through customs and immigration without proper documentation, these claims of free international travel may be viewed with some skepticism. There is, however, extensive documentation of Hartman's domestic antics at airports. She was arrested in Hawaii in 2009 while using another woman's identity, trying to board a flight without a ticket. She spent much of February and March of 2014 at San Francisco International Airport, coming into contact with police on 5 different occasions. On February 15th, Hartman successfully made it through security and onto a plane that was bound for Hawaii. She sat down in a seat on the plane, but when the person with the ticket assigning them to that seat came on board, the flight crew realized that Hartman did not have a boarding pass. Police interviewed her, but released her. They did the same 3 days later, when she was apprehended trying to get through a security gate. She was finally arrested 2 days after that, carrying someone else's discarded boarding pass, and charged with trespassing. A court order prohibited Hartman from returning to San Francisco International unless she had a valid ticket for a flight. However, she was found eating at the food court in the airport's Terminal A on March 18th. She was arrested on suspicion of violating a court order and trespassing. she was again arrested for the same reasons on March 26th, when police found her at the baggage claim in Terminal 3 of the airport. Hartman attracted national media attention in August of 2014 when she was arrested after successfully sneaking onto a plane and taking a flight from San Jose to Los Angeles. When she went before a judge, she was told to stay away from airports unless she had a boarding pass. Just a few days later, however, Hartman was back at the airport. She was taken into custody and this time sentenced to 6 months in jail, but due to overcrowding, she was released after just 3 days. Hartman then went on to have similar multi-day interactions with police after getting through security at Phoenix Sky Harbor International Airport and Minneapolis-St. Paul International Airport. She was generally only given warnings after each incident, although she did eventually serve 3 days in jail for trespassing, following her second incident in Minnesota. Hartman did face slightly more serious charges after turning up in Florida a short time later, reportedly after successfully flying there from Minnesota without a ticket. After landing at Jacksonville International Airport, she took a shuttle to the Omni Amelia Island Plantation Hotel, claiming to be a woman who was a registered guest there. At the hotel, she checked in under the same woman's reservation. This led to her being charged with fraud by impersonation, defrauding an innkeeper, and trespassing. Her public defenders were able to get her felony fraud charge dropped down to a misdemeanor, and Hartman was released after they had her declared mentally unstable. After leaving Florida, Hartman returned to Chicago, which appears to be her hometown. There are few concrete details available about Hartman's early life. She appears to have been born Marilyn Stahl and legally changed her last name to Hartman in 1985. She grew up on the south side of Chicago and attended Chicago Vocational High School, where she was a member of the National Honor Society and the chorus. She graduated in 1969, and within a few years, she was no longer in contact with anyone from her family. She reportedly has 3 brothers who have not heard from her since the early 1970s, and who do not like to publicly speak about her at all, much less in any detail. Hartman claims to have grown up in a violent home with mentally ill family members, although these statements are difficult to corroborate. An important factor in Hartman's behavior to consider is the fact that she is mentally ill, although the exact nature of her illness is not publicly known. Legal documents state that she suffers from depression and post-traumatic stress disorder, and she has stated that she has bipolar disorder. She further stated in court in 2022 that she has struggled with depression and medication management throughout her life. Hartman also has a conspiratorial worldview, which plays into her explanation as to why she continues to sneak into airports and onto airplanes. While corresponding with journalist Joe Eskenazi for a 2015 article he wrote about her, Hartman detailed what she believed to be an elaborate plot against her that compelled her to attempt to get past airport security and onto planes without tickets, and had resulted in her various legal troubles. Hartman claimed that the conspiracy against her began in 1990 when she exposed a Chicago lawyer working with a retired FBI agent to fix cases. Her actions resulted in ongoing retribution, which led to her becoming homeless on various occasions and committing her criminal actions at airports. She diagnosed herself with, and apparently created, what she called whistleblower trauma syndrome. She told Eskenazi that the condition resulted in a severe fight or flight reaction, which in her case literally made her feel the need to get on a flight to get away. She would say in a different interview several years later that she was always in a depressed state of mind when she snuck onto planes. According to Hartman, numerous people, including President Obama, were in on the conspiracy. She claimed she did not evade security checks at the various airports. Rather, TSA agents let her through. She further claimed that sometimes plane tickets would be left for her to find, and airport staff would let her use them, but then take her into custody once she was in a secure area of the airport. According to Hartman, the goal of this conspiracy was to land her in prison for an extended period of time, a belief that does not seem to align with reality, given the dozens of times she has been released with little to no punishment following her various incidents at airports. The purpose of highlighting this case on this channel is not to malign Marilyn Hartman specifically or individuals with mental illness in general. Rather, it is to draw attention to two major issues her case highlights: airport security and how the legal system handles individuals with mental illnesses. While someone managing to get past airport security in a post-9/11 world sounds like it should not only be impossible, but also of major concern should it occur, the Transportation Security Administration and several aviation experts who have been consulted for articles about Hartman's case have downplayed the security implications it has. After Hartman successfully flew from San Jose to Los Angeles without a ticket, the TSA claimed that the incident was not a security concern, because while Hartman had not been checked for a boarding pass at security, she had been screened for prohibited items, meaning she had no way of bringing any sort of weapon on board. They maintained that the incident only illustrated the need for minor changes to their document examination procedures to ensure people without boarding passes could not get through security checkpoints. While there are no indications that Hartman illegally boarded planes with any plans to commit any sort of nefarious acts, that does not change the fact that the holes in security and procedure she exploited with simple techniques could also be exploited by individuals with more malicious intentions. Hartman employed unsophisticated tactics, like blending in with large family groups at security and covering her face with her hair at airports where she was a repeat recent offender and known to airport staff. If she could find success with so little planning or effort, a more methodical and motivated mind could presumably have even more success than Hartman. The fact that potential criminals would most likely still have to be screened for prohibited items before sneaking onto a plane does not necessarily ensure that the public is safe. Just because a criminal does not plan on committing a violent act while a plane is in the air does not mean that the ability to travel domestically without record or have easy, undocumented access to secure areas of airports could not potentially benefit them in their criminal activities. As a nonviolent offender suffering from mental illness, Hartman falls into somewhat of a gray area. According to psychology and psychiatry professor Stephen Hinshaw, cited by Joe Eskenazi in his article on Hartman, it has become more and more difficult to have individuals confined to mental health facilities against their will. While this is a great victory for individual civil rights, it also means that some of the people most in need of help and treatment are unable to get it. While Hartman should not necessarily be forced into treatment, Hartman's case raises the important legal issue of if and when the courts should be allowed to order individuals to undergo treatment for their mental health, especially in regards to offenders who have not caused physical harm to others. Hartman was required to undergo various mental health evaluations throughout her criminal career, and was at times placed in voluntary treatment facilities, although she generally quickly left them. In recent years, while she has operated largely in just one jurisdiction, Hartman has been compelled into long-term treatment at different times, which did result in her various incidents at airports becoming fewer and farther between. Especially early on in her career as a serial stowaway, authorities felt sorry for Hartman because of her apparent mental health issues, which played a role in her being given such lenient sentences in the situations where she faced repercussions for her actions at all. Individuals suffering from mental illness should of course be treated with compassion, but Hartman's case raises the question of whether it is truly compassionate to release individuals in need of treatment, knowing that they will most likely reoffend, since the issues that led them to committing crimes in the first place have not been addressed. After leaving Florida following the conclusion of the legal proceedings against her there, Hartman appears to have largely remained in the Chicago area. She was involved in at least 9 incidents involving trespassing and attempting to enter secure areas at both O'Hare and Midway airports, including her flight to London without a ticket. In one incident, she did purchase a valid ticket, but had to be removed from the plane, which was taking off at Midway, because she caused a disturbance. She was charged with misdemeanor reckless conduct. The following day, she went to O'Hare, where airport staff detained her after she attempted to get through security without a ticket. Hartman had only received 18 months of probation for the trespassing and theft charges stemming from her ticketless flight to London. Just 7 months after she received that sentence, however, she was back at an airport in violation of the terms of her probation, involved in the incident that has resulted in her most recent legal troubles. On October 11, 2019, Hartman was seen by police attempting to get through one of the security checkpoints at O'Hare International Airport. She had already made it through the first checkpoint with no ticket. She was taken into custody and charged with felony trespassing. This time, she was held without bond. Hartman was eventually placed into a mental health facility, and her lawyers negotiated a plea deal. On March 16, 2021, just 2 weeks after they reached that agreement, and before it was finalized in court, Hartman fled the mental health facility where she had been ordered to stay. She had also been ordered to wear an electronic monitoring device, so authorities were able to track her movements. She again attempted to enter O'Hare International Airport. She was taken into custody at the airport's public transportation station. Hartman would later claim that she ran away because she was upset over the early release of an interview she had given in the local media. She had been given written assurances that it would not be broadcast until after her court cases were complete, but this did not end up being the case. She escaped the facility 2 days after it actually aired. In court, her lawyer would argue that the escape had been in response to something Hartman had no control over, the early release of the interview. On March 3, 2022, Hartman appeared in court and pled guilty to felony counts of criminal trespass and escape from electronic monitoring. The escape charge was in relation to her running away from the mental health facility in 2021, and the criminal trespass charge was in relation to the 2019 incident that had resulted in her being placed in the facility. The judge sentenced Hartman to 18 months in prison on the trespassing charge and to 2 years in prison on the escape charge, with the 2 sentences to be served consecutively. Hartman was given credit for approximately 2 years and 5 months already spent in custody. The facility she escaped from in 2021 agreed to let her return there for her court-ordered period of supervised release and mental health treatment. Hopefully this time, her treatment will finally result in her long-term success and keep her out of the courtroom and the airport.